Okay, so hi, hello in this new video. Today we will be talking about this green noodle head because I made a tutorial on how to make Hera's lekku, Hera's latex headpiece, and I got so many questions from you on some details on how I actually made it, so I just wanted to make a whole video with some tips that I got through this 2-year period. I hope that this will be helpful for any of you who will be making any headpiece. This definitely isn't the perfect headpiece, but this is progress. This really is progress. I previously made a really shitty latex lekku, and in the previous video I talk a bit more about the mistakes that I've made and the exact lessons that I learned when I made the first lekku, and a tiny little info that I made a Skillshare class about cosplay, about working with EVA foam and Warbler. Check it out in the description below. You can get 30 days free trial on the whole Skillshare library, and also if you would be interested in my cosplay patterns, you can also check them out in the description below. So yeah, so let's start with the questions, and let's start with this noodle head. I decided to collect those questions and sort them sort of in a way of how the headpiece was made. So we'll start with the mold questions and my side tips here. Okay, so the first question that I got was what clay did I use? And for this lekku I used air dry clay. I actually told you guys that that the name of this clay is terracotta, and for my knowledge, 2 years later, over 2 years later, terracotta isn't the type of the clay, it's kind of just the color of it. It was just air dry clay. Air dry clay kind of gets hard when, the air dries, basically. And so I also got another question. What did you do differently to the second lot of clay? What do you do so it doesn't crack? In the first making of my first mold and my first lekku, I had this problem where everything cracked. The same thing happened in this lekku as well, and I also recorded that on the tutorial. And a disclaimer that I'm really not much of a sculptor. I don't really like sculpting. I don't like getting into 3D things and figuring this out in this sculpting way. So just to avoid some of the mistakes and the cracking, for example, on the mold, I just searched YouTube for some tips, and I found LoreCraft Lorebox tutorial on how to work with it, and there I got this kind of a tip that the reason why the clay may be cracking, for example, if you don't first heat it up properly in your hands. But what I've noticed on my second lekku and this lekku, when I made the mold, was because this water then evaporates when the whole clay dries. That was the reason why it cracked mostly on the seams. And here I kind of want to talk about the shape, because the shape is really important. I would start with the actual base of creating a mold. This is a lekku here. I don't have my base here. It's somewhere in the basement. I was afraid of spiders to try to find it. I first time made my lekku, I made two crucial mistakes on the first steps. So first I used a styrofoam head that was much bigger than mine, so all of this part was too big, was really floppy, and no. And the second one was around the lekkus themselves. I applied too much clay. It didn't have any kind of a degree to that. It just went smooth up. I don't know how to explain this. These two things caused this being floppy just the head, so it wasn't a good situation. And here I fixed this problem. I cut out cardboard in the shape that I wanted the lekku to be. Yeah, so what you actually can see here is that it just has this shape here, and what I would actually recommend a bit more is to make it under some kind of a degree, so it's more a sharp degree rather than a very smooth thing, it just gets really floppy, so make it in the way so you can then take it off the mold. When I first made it, I made the lekkus were like too wide from each other, so taking it off the mold later was impossible, so I needed to cut it somewhere here, which left to a really like not beautiful result. And for example, if you want to make more of these in the future, so either think about where you will make the cuts and where you can like fix them and cover them in like places that won't be visible, or try to make the whole pattern easy to take off the mold without any cracking. The next question is, why did you paint the green circles on the mold? They were just only there so I could like have a trace for that, so they would be more symmetrical, and yeah, I think I did a good job. So yeah, that's only it. Okay, so let's go with the latex questions. What kind of latex did I use? I used latex from Cosplay Shop B. I think they come in a few sizes. I had like a half liter and also like a liter bottle. Have you thought about just using the liquid latex to pour over it so it's all just smooth? Yes, I thought about it, and the first attempt to making this lekku was actually that, so that's why I didn't do that in this costume. It's because if I just poured on the latex, there would be smudges of the latex pouring out because the liquid latex is like very liquidy, and that's why I used thickener to that. Yeah, and also don't use your favorite brushes for applying latex. Really just like go and buy a few cheap ones if you want to use brushes for that. But I used, for example, kitchen sponges. It was like one kitchen sponge per one layer. And yes, here is also a tip about drying of the latex. Their temperature is really important. When it comes to liquid latex, one layer takes like about 40 minutes to dry. It needs to dry room-like temperature. That's why I did it in the basement, because at this time I think we had like really cold weathers, if not like freezing ones. As I've read, liquid latex will not dry in temperatures like over like I think 20 degrees. It depends of course on the latex that you're using. It needs to actually dry, so you can't leave it in like the freezing temperature because it will freeze. Another person was asking, I was wondering if you only put the baby powder on the latex at the times you show in the video, or do you put it in between each layer of latex? So when it comes to baby powder, the point of baby powder and latex is that you can take it off the mold. When I did research on how to make this lekku, I talked with one Hera cosplayer who told me that she actually puts baby powder in between each and every layer, which I don't really understand why. I think it's like more to like thicken the layers, but I'm not really sure about that, and I didn't do that. I only did it on the mold, which I think that I didn't really need to do since I made air dry clay mold, so it would be like dry and smooth either way. If you have any kind of problem with taking it off the mold, then I would really recommend using that because it just prevents the latex to glue to itself. Though next time I will make, and I'm actually now in the process of making my next lekku. I am using wax clay for that, but besides that I want to, in between layers, add power mesh so it's not that heavy and it also has its strength. This is like a fabric, it's really strong, it's really thin, it helps like lighten these kind of projects. So coming back to the first like latex question, how to thicken latex. When I did my research, I found out that if you pour it to like some cup or something and cover it with something with like really a little bit of air coming into this container for like overnight, liquid latex will like naturally get thicker. But I also know that there are latex thickeners. I didn't find any like specific latex thickener. I just used and bought a thickener from art store for like paints. I don't even know what kind of paint it was. You need to be really careful with this kind of thickener, because if you add too much, it will not be a liquid anymore, which I show in the tutorial video. How many layers of latex did you make? So I really don't remember. I know that they were like few thin layers of latex, and then there were a few thicker layers, but I don't really remember how much exactly. But if I will find this information, I will like put it somewhere here, that how many liters did I use for this particular project, because that was my kind of a measurement more than how many layers. Okay, so the next question was, wasn't it like too heavy on your head? And yeah, it kind of was. The next time I will be making such project, I will first of all use power mesh to like, you know, strengthen this without adding too much weight on that. Like this lekku would really work out if it had less layers, because by itself it's not that heavy, but when you put cotton or some kind of filling in it, it kind of like you feel all the weight. Okay, so I think we're now in this kind of more like painting questions. Do you think I could make a lekku entirely out of clear latex and then airbrush paint afterwards, or would that make it stiff? I haven't tried this. I don't have any kind of experience in working with airbrush. I think that yes, of course, if there are flexible airbrush paints, I here would point at flexible airbrush paints just to make sure that the latex doesn't lose its flexibility and it doesn't have any cracks. So yeah. Can you use normal acrylic paint for it if you mix it with latex? Yes, of course, and I actually did that. In the video I showed you that I use like a wall paint pigment, because this was just what I found and I just really wanted it to be really pigmented, and I really like this like pistachio color, but it was still a bit too dark, which I mixed white acrylic paint. And here is a really important point when you mix latex with acrylic paint. First you need to like mix the paint, then add it to the latex. I don't know, it just like now it makes sense, but it didn't for the first time. When latex dries, it's not white anymore, it's more like transparent, a bit yellowish if you take a closer look. Just mix the color first. Okay, yes, so thank you so much for all of the questions. If you have any more of them, ask below in the comments, or check out my Instagram and message me on Instagram if you want to chat a bit more about any kind of cosplay topic. Of course, check out my Skillshare class below with the free trial on Skillshare. There will also be a video of me dressing up as Hera, and with my cosplays will be somewhere here and also in the descriptions, and of course my channel. Check it out if you want to like get some more inspiration on your Hera Syndulla project. I can't wait to make the next headpiece with a bit of other and different techniques. I am also recording all of the process. I will share what I learned again. See you next time and bye!